those years ago.
like
You're
professor
standing
who
face
just
to
didn't care about
face
keeping her
with
job.
I
I was
told
like, we
you
haven't seen her for
so.
like 4
I
movies.
told you
Are they
so.
really come
No,
back
I
to that?
hate
Now,
to
with that said, it's
say
not all
told
bad.
you.
They do
Oh
make
shit.
some correct decisions. One of which is that they both start going to therapy separately. And I don't know. I get the sense that this movie is almost at the point. It almost sees the problems about certain things and misses the mark every time. Because the therapist essentially says to her, I'm really concerned about all the things I've been concerned about. The weird power dynamic, the way that his personality seems like it would very much so dominate over her, even without that aspect of the power dynamic of them being student teacher, or at least at one point were student teacher. But because this is supposed to be a love story and that is the common denominator, like, we're not going to focus on anything else because this is a passion, well, this is a romance movie. I can't even blame this entirely on passion flicks. It's like most romance kind of drops the ball. Like, I do get a bit cynical, but I do feel like a lot of American media around, especially like younger adult or teenage romance, revolves around flowery abuse. Like, oh, we're just so toxic for each other, but it's exciting. And it's like, y'all do know that being happy is an option, right? But yeah, the therapist is like, yeah, he has so many things that will prove to be difficult. His personality, your social dynamic, his past with addiction, and she's just kind of like, we're in love. And then the cherry on top that lets you know that if this was a real relationship, this would just blow up right in front of both their eyes, is that he gets at the starting line of therapy. And he's like, the therapist is like, I'm a little concerned because it seems as though you're not going to meetings for like Narcotics Anonymous and like people to help with drug addiction or people that are currently sober. And he just quits therapy entirely. I was like, that's not a great sign. Not even like you got a new therapist.
This doesn't look good.
You just literally stopped. Okay, cool. So remember Paul? I don't know if you remember Paul, because I barely remembered him at one point, but the friend, the nice guy that likes Julia, but says
I'm gonna
that
stop
he's
with the
willing
pen.
to be the friend, and
No, I
pressure.
can't.
I just enjoy being your friend. We can stay that way or whatever. She ends up seeing him one day while she's out with Gabriel, and Gabriel goes inside of a building. I don't know why she stood outside waiting for him to like just go in the building. It's cold in Canada, but okay, for the scene to take place. She sees Paul and he notices that he hasn't talked to her in a while. He's like, hey, how are you? And he notices the mark on her neck, the bite mark, the one that her abusive ex gave her in one of the other movies. Paul is like, hey, what happened there? Are you all right? He starts to think that it's whatever boyfriend she's currently with, because at one point she was like, oh, I started a new relationship. Hey, is everything okay? Like, is he hurting you? Are you all right? Do you need something? And she's like, no, like, I'm getting it removed. I know it's an ugly scar, but I'm getting it removed. And she doesn't really say much more about that. And he's just basically like, if you ever need me, I'm here for you. Like, don't like suffer by yourself. I will help you. Paul, he's been great this whole time. And assuming he don't switch up on us, he's been great. But no, y'all don't want peace. This is true though. I do feel like most people don't want people that treat them well.
Did y'all see that?
Baby, heal. Please find comfort, find love of oneself, because it's getting very tired. Y'all are 27. But because they're still friends, later they end up meeting up for a cup of coffee, and he tells her about Bitchy Bangs, the girl that used to work with Gabriel that obviously had like a crush on him. Obviously one of the many antagonistic women in this story, so you probably don't know who she is. The one with the bangs, that's why I call her Bitchy Bangs. I'm sure she has a name. Her name is Bitchy Bangs. Anyway, but apparently she's like, why is Julia working with apparently the most decorated thesis advisor on campus? Like, she's jealous of all of these kind of seemingly random accolades and awards, attention that she seems to be getting, and she starts to suggest that it's perhaps because of a relationship that she has with Emerson, Gabriel. And ding ding ding, it's right, because they and I would look at you sideways too if you a professor and now all of a sudden you get a trip to Harvard. She ended up invited to Harvard, by the way. Call her up personally, PhD program. They're like, hey, you have been very much so recommended by this advisor. We want you in Harvard. All you got to do is finish your master's thesis, which I'm sure you'll do, and you come into Hall. But man, if I can go to Ivy League by putting out pussy, I see why someone would. Julia regardless of how book smart she is a dumb bitch. And she's like, I don't know if I can go to Harvard because, like, what about my relationship?
Oh.
What? When I tell y'all shit like this actually makes me, like, irrationally angry. I mean it. When I see a woman in particular giving up career opportunities, accolades, a bag for a man. Every time I see a woman just throw her W's to the side for a man who may or may not wipe his own ass, it breaks my heart. And this bitch don't even exist. This is a movie. She's like, I don't want to be away from you. I feel like it'll be the end of our relationship. Then you don't have a relationship. If it can't last for you to go like an hour flight away, then y'all wouldn't have lasted regardless. If you gotta be sniffing up under his ball sack to exist in a relationship, y'all don't love each other that much. But he's like, no, don't even worry about that. I'm gonna take a sabbatical because I want to go with you. Personally, that would annoy me, because we didn't even have a conversation about you coming with me. What if I wanted to be alone? What if I like my alone time? And now you're planning on living with me and didn't ask? That would make me mad. But okay, I'm just difficult. Okay. But she's happy, of course. That is until she gets a letter that is essentially a complaint, and she's being asked to come in for a preliminary interview. She tells Gabriel, and she's like, why would I have to go in? Like, I didn't plagiarize anything. I didn't do any of the things that would theoretically be on the chopping block. And I don't know why she didn't immediately assume it was their completely inappropriate relationship, but she doesn't. They do eventually put it together after Bitchy Bangs has filed a complaint of sexual harassment against Gabriel. Oh, this is the route we're taking. I think the thing that makes me really frustrated about this being the route we're taking,
I think his face looks fine. I think it's just
Gabriel
messed up his
is
body.
textbook someone to abuse power, and they're making it sound like he wouldn't do that because he's the lead in a romance novel. This dude is screaming red flags. Screaming would probably do these things. But here he tells Julia, and she's immediately like, you're not that type of person. Wasn't he making out with you and you were underage? Well, we're in love. Bitch, shut up. You a victim. And you know what they do after that? They She don't even pause. She's like, oh, that's not true. I'm like, wow. Even with a dude I've never had any signs about, I would at least say, ooh, let's spend some time apart, you know, maybe away a bit. No, she's like, oh, I don't believe it. But yeah, they have sex after that. They play a song that seems like it's sung by the chick that sung Bass.
Almost dropped my cup of milk.
Bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. It sounds like her voice. Her voice is pretty distinctive. I think it's in Portuguese, though. I'm not sure, but I do like this song. And it, of course, annoys me because whenever you put a halfway decent song in a shitty movie, it's usually when they're having sex. So I have to watch this stupid-ass sex scene just to hear the, like, the vibes. A little long. The scene was very long because they had to the whole time. As if there's not enough red flags, we have a whole conversation when they're on, like, vacation. They go to vacation right after this. Nothing on your mind. Just go. Okay. And he kind of says something in passing along the lines of, like, I'm so thankful that you saved me, quote unquote, from Bitchy Bangs. And I'm like, pardon? Like, what do you mean? What is there to save you from? You were her advising professor. You are the person in power. Is this you insinuating that you would have had a relationship with her too? I mean, granted, he's currently f***ing a theoretically former student because she's not in his class anymore, but he's been wanting to f*** a student this whole time. I'm sure this wouldn't be outside of his realm of possibility. So it just sounds like you would have considered a relationship with her, which would be along the lines of writing you up for sexual harassment or sexual advances. But Julia's a f***ing idiot, so she doesn't put anything together. And she decides to get a lawyer to go with her into her disciplinary meeting. She tells the story of her and Gabriel to the lawyer, reminds the audience that they met when she was 17, and I guess they just ignore that little blip of information by putting, like, a montage and, like, sweet music as if this isn't fucking disturbing. The lawyer kind of says to her, okay, here's the thing. If you and him had a consensual relationship, then you both violated agreements at the school, non-fraternizing agreement, and you'll both be held accountable for that. However, being that he is a man of power in this position, you could very much so be seen as a victim. He grades your papers. He's your advisor. He shouldn't have a relationship with you while he's in such a specific state of power, and that by proxy victimizes you. And if you say that, then he would get in trouble. He would be held accountable because he is a professor. No, it was completely consensual. We are in love. And you know, I know this is supposed to be a romance movie, but this shit broke my heart. I find this movie horrifying. I'm like, wow, so many people
Wolverine
have been in her position, and she does not understand that this is not good. This is not good. And she's like, no, we're in love. Like, he loves me. And because this is a romance movie, they're not gonna undermine the romance, right? They're not gonna make him a realistic guy who would be like this, who would be hitting on a bunch of students. They're gonna make him like super devoted to her, and that pisses me off, because if you meet a guy like Gabriel, he's bad news. Just so that you know that if you ever meet a guy like Gabriel, he's not like a sexy man with a dark past. Best case scenario, he's gonna cheat on you. I haven't brought this up, but the therapists in this, either these are the worst therapists that have ever existed, or whoever wrote this has never been to therapy. but the therapist that Julia is still seeing basically tells her that Gabriel isn't in therapy anymore, which is definitely a violation of something, because apparently the therapist's husband was Gabriel's therapist. And so that's another thing. Are they supposed to tell each other? That Canada. What are the rules in Canada? I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to do that, though. So they finally go to the disciplinary meeting. And this is where it is officially revealed that Bitchy Bangs has filed a complaint alleging that Julia was Gabriel for academic favors. Which, I gotta say, the evidence doesn't look very good. Even if you love each other, I haven't seen you write anything this whole movie, and now you're going to Harvard. That's all I'm saying. They had what seemed to be a very personal argument in front of students. That was in the second movie. Soon afterwards, she changed advisors from him to the other woman, who ends up being this incredibly zealous advisor. She gets huge grants. She seems to be abnormally supported, and now she's going to Harvard. So, like, what's going on? Throughout the meeting, lawyers do what lawyers do. No one likes a lawyer until you need one. The lawyer suggests that Julia should file a harassment complaint against Bitchy Bangs, which she reluctantly agrees to, which I find wild. What harassment? What did she do? Like, yeah, she's kind of pissed off, but, like, is she lying? Is she wrong? Like, sure, you weren't f***ing him for favors, but you f***ed him and got him. Granted, she also wanted to f*** Gabriel, but that's a moot point right now. Gabriel gets upset, punches a wall, breaks like a knuckle or something. That shit is not normal. That shit is not cute. I've heard of a lot of dudes that do that. And then want to talk about how emotional women are. I have all my knuckles, alright? So, Gabriel ends up upset that Bitchy Bangs has gone to, like, the board of the student advisory board, or complaints, whatever, to say that he had made advances towards her, and when she turned him down, he failed her thesis proposal and threatened to have her removed from the program. And meanwhile, the man running the investigation on the complaint finds the email that Julia sent Gabriel when they were fighting, I think in the second movie.
That is damning, isn't it?
She didn't want to talk to him anymore. Stop talking to me. You're harassing me. I want another advisor. Gabriel goes to Julia's house and they have sex again. It seems as though he was a little strange, though, and come to find out, this was his goodbye act, because the next time they meet up for the hearing, he's behaving as if she doesn't exist. In comes Paul, and he's like, damn, really? Apparently he was brought in some way as a witness. I don't really know why. I think he was there and saw kind of the advances that Bitchy Bangs did towards Gabriel, but I don't really know what they put him there for. I guess just to find out that there was something between her and Gabriel. At the meeting, they have like hella evidence that they were dating during the semester, which would have been like the crucial part. Like, did you start dating after the semester ended, or were you guys interacting in a way that was inappropriate during the semester? And like I said, there's a lot of evidence that it's obvious that you guys were doing something amorous. Whether or not it was sexual doesn't matter. You were having a lover's quarrel in front of the entire classroom. You switched advisors. You sent an email of him harassing you. Then you go to Italy with him and introduced to his colleagues. What a f***ing idiot. Why did you bring your student to introduce to his colleagues as his fiance, and you want us to believe that you just started dating right after the semester ended? Like, no. One of the women on the board is like, your relationship is inherently an issue. He has authority over you. He grades your papers. He is your professor. Can we just talk to Julia? And she's like, if you were coerced or intimidated in any way, you have every right to say something about that, and we will not punish you for this. And this whole scene is so fucking uncomfortable because, again, this is a romance movie, right? So I'm supposed to think of this, at least how I understand it, I'm supposed to look at this and kind of think of this board as like hindrances to their love when they're just people with common sense. People that have valid and very, very reasonable concerns. And I'm supposed to be like, F you guys, man, let love prevail. And I'm like, he's abusing you. I don't want it to prevail. And instead of feeling like this joy when she's like, no, it was consensual, like, I love him, I'm so sad when I hear that. I'm like, this is bumming me out. And being that Julia isn't accepting that they have concerns, and she's very adamant, she's like, we were in a consensual relationship, Gabriel does the truly noble thing and decides, I'm gonna take the fall for her because she won't do it. Martyrs himself, at least that's what they want me to believe, or that's what they want me to feel about it. I admit that we were in a relationship. It's not her fault, I guess, was in the relationship under duress, and thereby is not punishable. So he decides to take all the blame, and she is devastated. She's like, so what if I want to throw my life away? It's not your choice. I'm like, this is, again, supposed to be romantic. This is so depressing. But long story short, they can't be singing together for obvious reasons. And for all intents and purposes, they break up. Boo-hoo, I'm supposed to be sad. I'm not. She keeps trying to like get in contact with him, but he has kind of left his apartment in shambles. He's nowhere to be found. He sends her an email to stop contacting him and that their relationship is officially over. And Paul is there to give her some support in this time of need. This, I will say, this end of the movie was really weird because they put very dramatic music over just like a compilation of him going home and getting in bed. It's like, dun, 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 dun. And he's just like laying down. But that's the end of the movie. Terrible as usual. I always think that the bar can't go any lower when it comes to passion flicks film, especially anything in relation to Gabriel's Inferno, but I am often surprised. I found this movie actually one of the most frustrating because it felt like you're almost at the point. But it's a romance. I'm this far along. You gotta believe in their story. And it's like, I don't want them together. We're back. Now that you're all up to speed, all up to date, let's continue this beautiful love story between our Julianne, Jay, and Gabriel. And we'll start off with Gabriel's Rapture 3. Not gonna bore you with the intro. Spoiler, they all start the same. Lacrimosa, poor use of a requiem. I'm not gonna beat that dead horse. But Gabriel and Julia have broken up, and she's still working on her thesis. She's working with her thesis advisor, who is an interesting woman who ends up being somewhat of a confidant for Julia as she continues and goes forth with her studies, particularly as she transitions over to Harvard. It's obviously gotten around campus that there was a bit of a thing going on between Julia and Gabriel, but the advisor's like, I don't like people being in my business, so I'm not going to be in yours. Interesting. But as you go to Harvard and no one's going to know you
None of
there,
these look
it's
good.
important to not give anyone an inkling that you didn't, earn all of your accomplishments and that you got it in some way other than your talents as a student.